first of all the information you need for this class is located on D2L. I'm not going to hand out anything today just to save paper. A lot of times when you hand out stuff to people, it ends up on the bottom of the car. So all the information, the syllabus, and all the important information about this class is all online, and you can access it at any time through D2L. So that's what we're going to do right now. So we're going to go to D2L, and hopefully this works. There we go. And you put in your information. Your information, of course, your password will be different. All right. All right. And your well, we moved it over here, but this is really kind of shoot. Well, this is one of the fun things about technology. They have this. They move this smart stuff over here, and I can't move to get it over here. How do I move this here? Okay, hold on, folks.
Sir?
Okay, so now we scroll down here. Oh, now I gotta get off here. Now I gotta get out. All right, here we go. Oh, I'm still like this. Okay, how do I get out of here? No, I don't want. I want to get out of here.
There's the
So they have all this stuff here.
The done's on the bottom right there.
Any ideas how to get out of here?
There you go, done.
Bottom right of actual big panel.
What?
The done button.
Right.
The pop-up.
Right.
Down. There you
Oh
go.
yeah, done. Here. See, this is new. They didn't have this before. Okay, I'm gonna get that out. No.
You're doing pencil. You want the eraser, which is below the pencil.
Oh,
There
okay.
you go. Now just erase what you just did.
All right, and now we're gonna get out of here.
And then the pointer.
The
Yeah,
pointer
top.
should work.
Very top. There you go.
Oh, that'll get me out of it. All right. See, I'm just glad for you guys. You guys know more about this than this than I said. All right. Yeah. See, I don't have a smorgasbord usually when I teach this class, so I'm not used to that. See, they have all these tools you can use. I'm used to these instruments down here. I'm not used to the computer stuff. All right. So let's get going here, guys. All right. Now your courses are going to look different than mine because I have like a zillion courses on here. But you'll just have the courses that you're enrolled in when you get to your course. So we're AT. Well, either AT or CT or ET. So I'm going to go into AT for now. And this is how your front page should look. Let's do it. All right, and you can see that it's got the calendar, some dates coming up here. And also, this is important for you. Go to Integrity Lectures. What I try to do is tape every class meeting, and it won't have you'll just hear my disembodied voice and see what's on the PowerPoint. But Integrity is there designed for if you miss class for some reason, can't attend class, or if you just want to go over something that we went over in class, you can go to Integrity, click the day that we covered that material, and you can just watch the lecture again. The nice thing about Integrity is that you can actually go to where you want to go. You don't have to listen to the whole thing. So if you just want to go to where you're missing information, maybe let's say you're taking notes in class, and for whatever reason you kind of drifted off, that's easy to do. And you're like, boy, I don't remember anything about Charles V. Well, you just go to Integrity, look up Charles V, and you can find it and just go to that part of the lecture that covered that material. See how that works? Another thing about Integrity, I'm going to try to put all my lectures on YouTube. So if you go to my YouTube page, which is just look up David Toy and you can find it. And all the lectures will be there as well, most of them, as long as they load up correctly. As you can see by my vast knowledge of technology, which I just displayed to you, it might not be there or not. But anyway, so that's that. Okay, so we got Integrity. Now, what we're interested in is this. We can click Content, and you have an overview, and then Table of Contents, and here we have the course syllabus. All right. So you got the course syllabus. You got written assignments, exams. All that information is right there. I'm not going to read you the course syllabus because you're all intelligent people, so on your own, you can read the course syllabus very thoroughly. If you have any questions, let me know. I'm just going to kind of go over the high points, but it's very important for you all to read the course syllabus, and it's right here. You can actually, if you prefer to read it, you can, in a concrete form, you can print it out and anytime you want. Okay. Also, for all of our written assignments, you don't have to actually turn them in to me in class. You can actually go to the Dropbox and upload your work directly into the Dropbox. And here's the link to the Dropbox right here. Also, if you look under written assignments, the Dropbox can be found here as well. So you can do it two ways. Either go to Dropbox or here are all the assignments right here. Okay, and then exams. We have study guides for every one of the exams, and you can download those study guides and read them whenever you want to. So those everything that's going to be on the exam is on the study guide. Okay, and then we have a discussion board here, and you can click onto that. There's going to be discussions posted periodically throughout the semester, so you can use the discussion board. Also, another feature I have is that all the PowerPoints that we're going to be using in this class for class lectures, they're all on D2L. Now the PowerPoints that are on there might be a bit different. I like to play around and change my PowerPoints every year, so they might not be identical, but they're pretty much the same. I haven't changed too much. So you can use those PowerPoints. What some people like to do is to go to the PowerPoint slides, click it on, and print it out, and then use the PowerPoint slides to take notes. It's kind of an outline of the lecture. So if that's something you want to do to help you go through it, you just, like I said, you just print out the PowerPoint slide, bring it to class, and then while I'm lecturing, you can take notes as you go. Because like I said, basically the PowerPoint slides are an outline of what we go over in class, in our class meetings. Okay, so that's kind of an overview of D2L, of some of the features. Also, you can email me through D2L. I prefer if you email me. If you have any questions or concerns or want to let me know what's going on, if maybe you missed class, you can use D2L to email me, and I prefer if you did, because the great thing about D2L is that I know who you are. A lot of times when I get emails on my regular email account, some people just say it's Joe, and I'm like, who's Joe? You know. But if I get it through D2L, I know it's somebody in my class. I know what class it's from. All right. Okay, so let's go to the course syllabus. Well, I don't know who's got a phone on, but turn it off. All right.
It's our classroom phone.
Our classroom phone? Huh.
Over there.
Yeah.
Go answer it. Let's see who it is.
It's already hung up.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, if that happens, just say, hey, we're in class, you know, and hang up. All right, now this is the course syllabus, and we're going to get to that. What I'm going to do, the course syllabus is kind of very, very thorough document. It's got all the information about the class. There's also a thing called the course addendum, which is a kind of a very quick overview of the syllabus, kind of like information. It's a little more accessible than the full syllabus. Now, the daily syllabus is something that you all need to look at. The daily syllabus is important because it tells you what we're going to be doing in class for every class meeting and what you should be reading. You know, we have 2 textbooks in this class, the Documents in World History and the Civilizations Past and Present. And as you can see, accompanying every class meeting we have is an assigned reading. So and what I'd really recommend you do, I know now some of you won't be able to do this because you're busy or have other things to do, but the preferred method is to actually do the reading before you come to class. Why? Because when I cover this material in class, you'll already have some familiarity with it. So the idea is that the reading material and the lectures, you'll strengthen your knowledge. You know, the more ways you acquire information, the different ways, the better. So if you're hearing me and also reading the book at around the same time, that information has a better chance of getting into your brain and actually helping you recognize and learn that material. So one of the worst things anybody can do is try to cram. You know, try to say, maybe try to do all the reading like the night before the exam, because it just doesn't work. I mean, some people can do that. They have like a really great memory or great memory. They can memorize things very quickly. But for most mere mortals, that is not something that works. So the best thing to do is to do the reading when it's assigned. Try to get all the reading done before you come to class, if possible. And that way, the night before the exam, instead of trying to cram a bunch of new information in your head, you're simply trying to refresh your memory. You're reviewing rather than learning new material. So I can't stress that enough. Always try to keep up with your reading assignments. Do the reading assignment before you come to class. All right. So that's the daily syllabus. Now this daily syllabus is not written in stone. So there'll be times when stuff that we're covering in class might not fit exactly. Usually I have a tendency to get behind because I have a tendency to get into a topic and get too excited about it and go off and spend too much time talking about something, and then I have to play catch up. So there'll be times when we'll be a little behind on the daily syllabus, but eventually we'll get all caught up. All right, let's go back to a little slow today here. All right. But anyway, now this computer seems to be very slow. For some reason, it's not working. All right. Well. But anyway, that's going to be an issue. I guess for some reason, this computer is an older model computer. It's kind of like an old car. Right. Well, anyway. I don't know what's going on. All right. Well. Now, what we need to do also next to is what I want to do is kind of give you an overview of what we're going to be doing in class. And obviously, you'll just have to listen because the computer doesn't want to help me and be helpful. So you'll just have to listen. All right. If you were to look at the see, here it goes. And if you were to look at the course addendum, which maybe we can, let's see if it works. Well, it'll take a while. But if we were to look at the course addendum, you'd see that in this class we have it kind of breaks down. We have in this class 3 exams. Now, as you can see, we have 3 exams, and each is worth 20% of your grade. Now, we have a total of 500 points in this class. Each exam is worth 100 points. So you have 300 points worth of exams. That's 60% of your grade. So that's how it breaks down. So we have 3 exams, and now all these exams are the same. They have the exact same, well, not content-wise, but the same format. And if you go, and I'm not going to go there because it'll probably take the computer 10 years to get there. If you go to exam study guides, you'll see that for every exam, there is a breakdown of what the exam is made up of. Now, every exam in this class has the exact same format. Part 1 is there's a bunch of historical terms, and what you have to do is discuss the historical significance of those terms. Now, on the study guide, you'll see about 20 different terms, 20, 25 terms. Now, on the exam, what I'll do is I'll take 6 of those terms, and I'll choose the 6. And then you will write on 3 of those 6 terms. So, if you studied every term on the study guide, whatever the 6 were, you'd be good to go, right? Now, you obviously want to write on the 3 terms of the 6 that are there on the exam that you feel that you know the best, that you're the most comfortable with. Now, So you write 3 essays on 3 of those 6 terms. Now, when you write these essays, what you need to do is not just be a parrot and parrot back something you've read or heard from me. What you have to do is to get down to it and discuss why that particular term. Could be a person, could be a term, an abstract term, an idea, it could be an event. But what you have to do is, in an essay, discuss why that term is important in world history. What its significance, what's its big picture significance. So you have to identify the term, obviously, but you also have to know why it's important. How does it fit into the bigger themes that we are addressing in this course? Now, the purpose of this essay is to help you really fine-tune and strengthen your higher order thinking skills, your critical thinking skills. Because we live in an age when there's just so much information out there in the world we live in today. You know that in your phone, your little smartphone, if you happen to have one, there's more information than in a computer in the 1950s that would have taken up a whole block of New York City. It's amazing how much information you have at your grasp. So you have all this information, but the problem is people don't know what's important and what's not important, what's vital information and what's not vital information. And one of the skills that you can develop in a history class that will help you in other fields is developing that ability to discern what is necessary, what is critical, what is important, and what is not. What information actually, you could write an essay that was full of correct information, but if it was useless information that doesn't really tell us why that term is historically important, the information is not helpful. So one of the goals of this course, one of the objectives of this course, is to increase your critical thinking skills and give you develop those skills of trying to go through a bunch of information, a massive information, and determining which information is important, which information is indicative of why a term is important historically, what information proves a point, and what information is useless. Because believe you me, there's a lot of useless information out there. Question?
When you say essay, are you talking about like 1 page or like 3 or 4 pages?
Well, with essays in class, I don't have a set rule of how long it can be. But it's been my experience that you'd be hard-pressed to write an effective essay that was only 2 sentences long. So I would say that normally a good lengthy paragraph would be enough. Under normal, given the amount of time, you only have an hour and 20 minutes for the essay. You're writing 4 essays, so you're writing 3 short essays. All right, so that would be part 1. So you write 3 essays discussing the historical significance of a term. Now, in part 2 of each essay, there's a set essay question, and you'll be able to determine which of the essay questions you want to answer before you even come to class. Now, I do give everybody the option of creating an outline. And you can create an outline and use that outline to help you keep you on track when you're writing the essay. Now hopefully this is going to work. I'm going to see if I can show you something here. But, oh, now it's working. So we got written signs. Now, to help you kind of stay on track, I have a rubric for writing essays. It's called Evaluation of Essays. And this can kind of help you prepare an outline when you're preparing your outline for the exams. Like I said, you'll know the exam question ahead of time, and you can prepare an outline. So what I've done here is for y'all to consult is I have a form which kind of discusses what you need to have, what an essay needs to have to be an effective essay. All right, and here they are. So let's look at it. The key elements, there are 3 key elements to an essay. It needs to have a thesis, it needs to have arguments in support of a thesis, and it needs to have evidence to support its arguments. They all kind of fit together. Now, when you write an essay, your thesis is the point that the essay is trying to prove. So if you're doing a short essay, your thesis is a very brief statement as to why that particular term is historically important. In a longer essay, a thesis might be more than one sentence because basically your thesis is how you're answering the question. When you write an essay, you don't beat around the bush. You get to your point right away, and in your first paragraph, in your first sentences of your essay, you tell the reader exactly what you're going to prove, or what you are proving, how you are answering the question that is being asked, or the questions, or how a term is historically significant. So you get right to the point. So your thesis has to be very clear and concise and get to the point. So every good essay begins with a good, strong, solid thesis. All right, now, writing an essay is kind of like solving a math problem. When you solve a math problem, you just don't give the answer, do you? Right? What do you do when you write a math problem? Don't you? What if you were taking a math test and you just put answers, especially if it was an algebra test? What would the teacher say if you just put answers? What would your teacher say?
Show your work.
Show your work, wouldn't they? They would say, how did you get that answer? Even if it was right, they'd want to know, how did you get that answer? Well, it's no different. Well, it's a little bit different. But in a history essay, once you provide the answer to the question, the thesis, you have to show how you got there. So you have to provide arguments. You have to argue. They used to have a fancy word in ancient times called rhetoric. But you have to have arguments to persuade the reader why your answer is correct. So you give the answer, and then you provide arguments that support that thesis. So you have to have arguments. And they have to be clear. They have to be rational. They have to make sense. They have to be applicable. And they can't just be random or nonsensical. But so you have to have a thesis, you have to have arguments. Now, the thing about arguments, you can argue anything you want, but without evidence, without facts, they're worthless. So whenever you have arguments, this is where learning all this history stuff, all these names and dates and facts and all that where it comes into place. I'll just give you an example. If you were to argue that let's say, you might be able to answer this question for me, that the Roman Empire fell because Napoleon was such a great commander of the forces that fought Rome. What would be wrong with that argument? And you made good arguments about why Napoleon was such a great military leader. What would be wrong? What would be the basic problem that would not square with the facts?
There's a time gap.
There's a time gap, exactly. Chronology. I give an extreme example. Napoleon lived in the early 19th century. The Roman Empire fell in the 5th century AD, more than 1,000 years earlier. So that would be a nonsensical argument because the facts don't support the argument. So you could say all you want about how great a Napoleonic leader he was and how great Napoleon was a military leader, blah, 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 but it would be negated by the fact that there's a chronological gap. Now, you gave an extreme example, but that's true of everything. That's why you got to have the evidence. That's why you have to know your dates. People will say, oh, I hate dates. Well, you need to know dates because you can't make an argument. If you're going to argue that A influenced B, you have to prove that A lived before B or was a contemporary of B. See what I'm saying? You have to have that chronology in place. So you need to have arguments, but you have to have arguments that square with the facts, that are supported by the evidence. The names, the dates, the places, the events. You need to have that information. Kind of consider your facts as, if you were fighting a battle, as the arrows in your quiver. That you're going to use the facts as your weapons when you're trying to make an argument, when you're trying to argue and in support of your thesis. See how all those come together? Your thesis, arguments, facts, and evidence. You have all those have to be in place to really have an effective essay. And that's why I really strongly encourage you when you get ready for the first exam and you know, let's say for part 2, you'll know the essay question in advance. You can use this to prepare an outline. Write out your thesis, maybe in bullet form, have each one of your arguments laid out, and then for each argument, write down the specific facts you're going to use to support that argument. And now that the computer seems to be working better, maybe I can take a chance and see if I can show you a study guide. Hey, there we go. All right, so see, that's the part one. Those are the terms. There's a lot of terms. We're going to cover these terms. Don't worry. And then these are the essay questions. Now you can choose which one. You'll have the same choice on the exam on the day of the exam. But basically, this is where you can ahead of time prepare a outline and have your outline with you and consult it during the exam. All right. So that's it for exams. Do you guys have any questions about anything we've talked about when it comes to exams? Okay. Now, if you think of any questions, you can talk to me after class, or you can send me an email, or you can come to my office. I know that may be hard for people in Kingsport or Elizabethton, but you can always email me or call me if you have any questions. All right. So let's go to table of contents. Okay, and let's go back to syllabus. And okay. All right. Now, so you got 3 exams. And then on top of that, we're going to have written assignments in this class. Now, with the written assignments, we're going to have 4 written assignments, each worth 8% of your grade for a total of 32% of your grade. So written assignments make up about 1/3 of your grade in this class, roughly. Now, for the assignments, what you're going to be doing is, on 3 of the assignments, is you're going to be answering specific questions in documents in world history. So if you go to written assignments, you can see here are the 4 questions. All right? So basically what you're going to be doing is writing essays. You're going to be doing the exact same thing you're going to be doing in the in-class exams, but you're going to be writing essays to questions that you can find in the documents in world history. Okay? And so the same criteria that I used to grade your exam essays, that same criteria will be used to grade your 4 written assignments. Right? And you can find for each assignment, the due dates for the assignments are in the daily syllabus. They're also in your course calendar. And here are the questions for each one of the 4 assignments. Now, with the documents in world history, this is a fun thing you're going to be doing. I hope you think it's fun. You might not. But documents in world history is a collection of what we call original sources. So what you're actually reading in the documents in world history are the same material that historians use to learn about the past. When historians try to learn about the past, we go to artwork or writings that were produced at the time that we're studying. So if we were studying the 16th century Europe, we would read what the writings of 16th century writers. Now, fortunately for your documents in world history, they're all put into modern English. You don't have to read French or German or read Old English. You can actually read it in a translated form. But what you're reading is the same materials that historians use to try to unlock the mysteries of the past, to explain what happened hundreds of years ago. So what you're going to be doing with these written assignments is reading these documents and these original sources, these documents, and answering the question based on these documents. Now, for these written assignments, you don't have to rely solely on what the information in the documents in world history. You can bring in information from lecture or from the other textbook, our standard textbook we're using. But you also need to understand how to answer questions, analyzing and examining these original sources. So, for example, the first question, first written assignment you'll be looking at looks at what we call the Columbian Exchange. We'll get into that later. And what it has is a bunch of sources discussed from Mexico and Latin America from the 16th century, in translation, of course, where you can see, where you try to see how we can see the Columbian Exchange as revealed in the documents that were produced at that time. So it's going to ask you to examine those documents and show how those documents illustrate to us the full impact of this of how this Columbian Exchange worked and how it changed world history. Hopefully through this exercise, by doing the documents of world history, it kind of gives you an appreciation of what historians do. Because historians have to look at these original documents to try to make their understanding complete. And without these sources, we would know nothing about what was happening hundreds of years ago, or 50 years ago, or 100 years ago. So by reading these documents, you're kind of getting a flavor, you're kind of getting a sense of the process that historians have to go through to come up with a list of facts and come up with an understanding of our history, of world history, and of all history. All right. Now, you have to do, there's 4 written assignments. Now, 3 of your written assignments come directly from the Documents in World History book. But you all have a chance to do your own research, your own, on a topic that interests you. So let's go back to written assignments. Okay. And it's called the Individual Student Report. And what you do now, whenever a written assignment is due, one of the written assignments you do has to be an individual student report. And you can turn in your individual student report whenever you want, well, not whenever you want to, in lieu of doing whatever the Documents in World History assignment is that's due. See what I'm saying? So you can substitute the individual student report for any one of the written assignments. So you do 3 written assignments from Document in World History, then you do your individual student report. Now, what you do the individual student report, this is where you can choose the topic that interests you. Hopefully, you'll like something about world history. And what you do is the focus of this assignment is to try to link events in the news today with what we're going through and discussing in this class. So what you're going to do over the course of the semester, hopefully you will, is kind of pay attention to the news. I put down a site for you. I think the BBC News site is a really good site for keeping abreast of what's going on in the world. One of the things they do at BBC News is that in addition to the news story, they also have links to like backstories, so you can kind of get the kind of a background for what's going. I think it's the best news site in the world. A lot better than CNN or Fox or anything, but it's a good source of information. And anyway, so what you want to do in this exercise is stay afoot of what's going on in the world and link what's going on in the world today with what we've studied in the past, what we've examined in the past. And you're still writing an essay, but the purpose of your essay is to show the links between what's going on in the world today and events that happened that we've covered in this class. And so in your thesis, you would make clear the connection between the events of today and what we've covered in class, and then you'd have to provide arguments and evidence. And now when you do these individual student reports, you can use information from lecture and from the textbooks, but what I'm asking every student to do is to do a little extra research. So you need to actually make a trip to the library, and you can use articles, you can use books, but a lot of these articles you can get through the online database here at Northeast State. And if you go talk to a reference librarian at the Northeast State bookstore, they'll be happy to help you find sources. So you can use a book, but you can also use online sources of information as sources. So you need to have 2 additional sources of information, and you don't have to have footnotes. It's not a research paper. I'm not expecting you to write a research paper like you do in Comp 2. But what I ask you to do is at the end of your paper, at the end of your assignment, just list your sources. And that's all you have to do. You don't have to write. It's like I said, it's not a research paper. You just present your essay, and then at the end, you present your sources of information. All right? So that would be your individual student report. All right, so any questions so far about written assignments? Okay. All right, so let's go back to table content. Go back to the course addendum. All right, so we've got 3 exams, we've got 4 assignments. Okay, then we have discussion. Discussion is not a big part of your grades, only 8%. Now, over the course of the semester, I'm going to be posting discussion topics. And these discussion topics are going to come from documents in world history. And they're going to usually accompany what we're going over in class. Also, and what you're going to have to do in these discussion topics is answer questions that come directly from the Documents in World History book. So it's, again, you're reading original sources and answering questions. Now, with these discussion topics, though, it's a lot easier. It's only 8% of the grade, so I didn't want to make it that hard. You don't have to write an essay. If you want to write an essay, you can, but you don't have to. For the discussion topics, all you have to do is answer the questions in a very informal way. It's called discussions for purposes. You don't have to write a formal essay. You can kind of answer the question as if you were in class being asked a question and just kind of informally discussing it. And you can answer the question. You can comment on what another student has said. To get credit, all you have to do is show that you've done, through your discussion, that you've actually done the reading. And it's a pass, no pass thing. Either you get, each one is worth like 4 points. Either you get the 4 points or you don't get the 4 points. And it's very easy to get the points as long as you show by your answer that you have some understanding of the reading. So it's a very easy way to get points. I didn't know, actually they're worth 8 points. But anyway, so that's discussion. And we, when a discussion topic is posted, I'll let you know. But you can also, you'll see the due dates on the calendar when I post a discussion topic. If you could, I'd like everybody today, in addition to reading the syllabus, I'd like everybody to get on the discussion board and click the readings. Look under discussions. There's this introductions, and if you all could, I've already posted something. If you could just kind of tell the rest of the class something about yourself, so we're not all just names and faces. Just say something about yourself. Introduce yourself to the class. I've already said something, and you can just reply to my welcome message. Also, another feature we have here is I call it student feedback. Student feedback, it's something where, let's say a lot of times you might have a question about something, but you don't want to look stupid. I mean, I was the same way when I was in college. You don't want to, it's a really, you think, oh man, that's such an obvious question. I don't want to ask it. Well, with student feedback, you can ask questions anonymously. So the question will appear, but nobody will know who asked the question. So it's a really good way. If you have a question about something, you can just post it under student feedback. I'll be glad to answer your question there. And also, if you want to have a general question to ask other students about something, you can use the student feedback for that purpose. But under discussions, that's where I'll be posting discussion topics in the future over the next 15 weeks or so. All right, any questions about discussions? All right. Well, going back to the content here. Just want to say, before we get to talk a little bit about the topic, I want to say a little bit about attendance here and makeup policies. Just real quick here, attendance is mandatory. You're supposed to be here. If you miss 3 or more classes, your grade's going to be lowered by a full letter grade. So if you earned a C and you missed more than 3, you get a D. End of story. Now, that being said, I do excuse absences, but it's based on the situation. So if you know you're going to miss, if you're sick, if you have car problems, if you have a family emergency, whatever the case, all you have to do, email me, let me know what's going on, and I'll usually excuse your absence, unless it's a real lame excuse. As the teacher, I have the discretion to decide what's a good excuse and what's not a good excuse. But if you call me, I'll usually let you excuse your absence. So if you know you're going to miss class, just let me know. Also, the weather situation. A lot of times, if you live on Road Mountain and you have to drive, and it might be fine here, but it's like icy up there. I don't want anybody dying trying to get to my class. So that would be something else. Weather conditions would be an issue, especially this time of year. Also, makeup work. If you, I don't accept late papers at all. But if you know you're going to miss an assignment and it's due to whatever the issue could be, just let me know. And it's the same thing. If you have a family emergency, an illness, whatever, if you don't think you're going to make turn in an assignment when it's due, just let me know what's going on ahead of time or rightly around the time. Let me know what's happening, and I usually give you find a way to work with you to get that assignment turned into me. And also, if you miss an exam, I do makeup exams, but it has to be at a time that's convenient to me. So if you miss an exam, don't expect me to come and meet you and come to your house and give you the makeup exam. Or don't expect me to make a special trip to campus to be convenient to your schedules. If you miss an exam, you have to work with me to define the time that was convenient to me for you to take that makeup exam. Now, I would say I've been teaching for 20 years, and more than 20 years actually, and it's been my experience that people who take makeup exams usually do worse than people who take the exams when they're actually due. Now, of course, if you're ill, then can't be helped. But please do not I don't want you to be in a situation where you say, well, I'm not ready for the exam, so I'll just take a makeup. Don't do that. If you do that, you're going to do worse. Just take the exam when it's due. Believe me. So I really don't like people taking makeup exams unless it can't be helped. The illness or family emergency or something like that, then I'll be glad to accommodate you. But otherwise, don't miss an exam. All right. Okay, so we covered all that. Now, what I'd like to do in the remaining time, like I said, I'm going to try to get you out of here, not go the full time today, because I want to talk, if I can get it to work, a little bit about what we'll be doing in this class. So let's see if my PowerPoint slide works. All right. First of all, yes.
Is this going to be on the test?
No, this is more, you can take notes today if you want to, but this is basically just kind of an overview of what we're going to be studying in this class. Okay. And one thing I wanted to point out before we begin is, and if for you who've taken my World History 1 class, this slide will look familiar. But when we study about world history, historians study what we call complex cultures. I mean, human history, of course, if you think of history in the generic form, human history encompasses all types of people, and from people living in grass huts to people living in giant steel cities. I mean, the diversity of the human experience is profound. But when we study history, mostly what we're doing is we're studying what we call complex cultures. Now, they used to call these complex cultures civilizations, they used to contrast civilizations with savages. So either you were a savage or an uncivilized, or you were civilized. And it's been found that the word savage is politically incorrect and insulting to people. So they got rid of that word, and now it's complex cultures and simple cultures. So when you study history, you focus on what we call complex cultures as opposed to simple cultures. So, if this works here. So we focus on complex cultures. And real quickly, what are these are some of the things that we're going to be focusing on. These are the kind of the basic attributes of a complex culture. It's urban-based. Complex cultures are based in cities. Not everybody lives in the cities, but the center of the civilization, where people go for government, for culture, they go to town, they go to city, they go to the big town. They're urban-based. Second of all, in a complex culture, you have what we call a surplus. You have, in the sense that there is enough food. People aren't reliant on producing their own food. Some people produce food, and they produce a food that feeds everybody else who's not involved in food production. Up till about 300 years ago, 90% of populations had to be devoted to food production to feed the 10% who weren't involved in food production. Up until the 18th century, that's the way everywhere it was. It was that way here in the United States when our country was first formed. 90% of the population lived on farms, grew their own food, and they produced the food for the 10% that weren't directly involved in food production. Now lately we have a situation different. Now, only in the year 2014, only about 6 to 7% of the population produces all the food. to feed the rest of the 94% or 95%. And that's all through the impact of technology and the industrial market revolution that occurred several hundred years ago. But anyway, but you need to have food production and all. You need to have a surplus of food in every complex culture. The reason why you need to have a surplus of food feeds into our next subject, and that's specialization. In a complex culture, people have specialized tasks. Like I said, throughout most of history, 90% of the population had to be directly involved in food production to produce the surplus for the people who weren't involved in food production. But when we talk about that remaining 10%, we're talking about people who are craftsmen, people who produce goods, people who make goods. We're talking about people who are involved in government. We're talking about soldiers. We're talking about tradesmen and merchants. So everybody in a complex culture has a specialized task. We would call that today a career, right? You are all in training for your area of specialization, right? So eventually all of you hope to get a career where you will use your specialized training to provide a specialized task for this society. Some of you may be teachers, some of you may be engineers, some of you may be retail clerks if you don't get your degree at Northeast State. There's a whole bunch of different options, and these are all specialties. Now, another key aspect of a complex culture is what we call social stratification. What does that mean? Anybody know what social stratification means? So I don't have to. Oh, yes.
The formation of social classes.
Social classes, very good. And it's kind of think of social classes kind of like as a cake. You know how cake has different layers to it? You know, you got the cake and then you got the frosting. Sometimes you have a double layer cake. Now I'm getting hungry now. Right? You have different layers. And the fancy word for layer is strata. That's where we get stratification. So what we find in that every complex culture that's ever existed, that you have different social classes. And each social class is like a layer, like a strata. And some social classes and strata are above others. So you have some social classes, some strata that are very low. And in those social strata, the people usually are poor, and they don't have a lot of influence or power, and they have a very difficult standard of living. And then as you go up the strata, you find that some people at the top, the people at the highest level, they are people who have power and wealth. There was a big, last couple of years, I think in 2011, 2012, there was all this talk about the 1%. Remember, did anybody watch that or hear about that? There was the Occupy Wall Street, and they're all complaining about the 1%, the 1% at the top who have all the money and the power. And so this has actually been a topic that's been in the news lately. But that's something that's everywhere, in every culture that's ever existed. You find social stratification, where you have the people at the top who are very wealthy and powerful, people at the bottom who have zilch, or very little. And in between the very rich and the very poor, you have the middle class. Now what we'll see is that historically the middle class has been very small. It's only been since the market revolution that we're going to discuss in this course that the ranks and the size of the middle class has grown so that the middle class in a modern American society makes up a majority of the people who live in this country. That always has not been the case. Now, the last feature of every complex culture is every complex culture has to have a formal system of government. Now, every culture that's ever existed has some kind of organization, some kind of system of organization. Traditionally, if you go back thousands of years to the time of before complex culture, a simple culture, everything was done by the family, your kinship groups, and tribal leaders who were leaders of clans. But in complex cultures, you have a formal system of government. In the case of the United States, you have a written constitution. Every state has a constitution, which lays out the structure of how the government is supposed to work. So you have a formal system of government in every complex culture. All right. So those are the features of a complex culture. So we're going to be focusing on these complex cultures. All right. Now, when we talk about world civilizations, one thing that's in the news a lot today is talking about the West and the West being set apart from everywhere else. And so what I've done here is kind of to help you kind of give you an idea of what they're talking about here is kind of contrast what were these two different systems. When we talk about the West, we're talking about civilizations that were organized in Western and Central Europe, like Great Britain and Germany and France and Italy. And of course that culture influenced the civilizations and the culture of North America and South America. Australia and New Zealand, even though they're not even close to Europe on the globe, are part of the West, because Australia and New Zealand were settled and colonized by Europeans. So even though North and South America and Australia and New Zealand aren't even close to the West or Western Europe, they are considered part of the West because of the fact that European culture has predominated and spread to all these areas of the world. Now, believe it or not, the Middle East, and to a lesser extent Africa, you could make a case that they belong to the West than they belong to the East. Now, the Middle East, like Syria and Iraq and Egypt and places like in Africa, they usually don't consider themselves part of the West, but in many ways they are. For example, as you know from your World History 1, the whole culture of European civilization is deeply rooted in the Near East, in what is today Syria, in what is today Israel, in what is today Iraq. So to a large degree, the civilization that now exists in the Middle East and the civilization that developed in Western Europe, they're like cousins. They both have their origins in the ancient Middle East. So in a way, the Middle East is at the heart and soul of Western civilization. Even though today, the predominantly Muslim population of the Middle East will say, no, we are not. We are different from the West. Even though historically, they have strong ties and links to Western civilization. Africa is another case. Africa has its own unique civilization, but much of the history and culture of Africa has been influenced by European colonization. For example, today in the Central African Republic in Central Africa, there's all these battles between Christian Central Africans and Muslim Central Africans, and both Christianity and Islam are relatively recent imports into the history of Africa. So these two different cultural worldviews are clashing with one another and leading to ethnic strife, when both of these influences are fairly recent in the history of Africa. So Africa is one of those areas that's kind of, it could be east, it could be west. I mean, it's not east at all, but it could be west, or it could be its own unique cultural realm. Now, when we talk about the east, we're talking about mainly China. But Japan and Korea are countries that have their own unique culture, but were shaped and influenced to a large degree by Chinese civilization. And then you have Southeast Asia, especially India. India is another one of those hard things to nail down, because it's been influenced by the West, but it's evolved and developed into its own unique civilization, and it's influenced much of the civilization of what is today's Southeast Asia. Malaysia, not Malaysia so much, but Vietnam, Cambodia, Burma, all of these countries of Southeast Asia have been shaped and influenced by both China to the north and India to the east. Now, a big question mark is Russia. Russia is very much part of Western civilization to a large degree, and has been shaped and it's ostensibly a Christian nation, but Russia has historically always saw itself separate from the rest of Europe, and that's one of the things we're going to focus in on this class. Why, even to today, the Russian leader Putin wants to have Russia go its own route. There was in the news recently, there was a big battle in the Ukraine, which is near Russia's neighbor. And some people in the Ukraine want to be part of Europe. They want to be part of the European Union. And other people in Ukraine, they want to stay loyal to the old Russian idea of being independent. And they're fighting in the streets. There's street battles and riots and rock throwing and all kinds of stuff going on in Ukraine with this battle. What does it mean to be Ukrainian? Are we Russians? Are we part of Russia? Or are we part of the West? Are we part of Europe? So these issues are a big part of what's going on in the world today. All right. Let's get out of here. Now, oh, no. All right, now, last thing before we leave. Last thing before we leave, I wanted to go over the couple of things what we're going to be doing in this class, and then I'll let you out of here, because I know we've got an hour, and usually I like to give a break, but we really don't have much more to cover. If you go to the course syllabus, read the course syllabus. It's got the course objectives. Read those. Got the TBR objectives, course objectives. I wanted to focus a little bit on this last thing, kind of give you what we're going to be doing in this class for the next 15 weeks. We're going to be spending the first part of the class, up to the first exam, just looking at the development of Europe, of European civilization, because that has so much influence the civilizations of North and South America and so much. We're going to be spending a lot of time looking at the development of early modern Europe. We're also going to be looking at contrasting with what was going on in Europe, contrasting what was going on in Asia and in China in particular, in Japan, during what was called the late traditional period. So we'll start with this, and then we'll move on to that. And so we're going to contrast the very dynamic Europe that was changing dramatically in the early modern period with the fact that China and Japan, which were much richer, especially China, were much richer and more populous than Europe, they were pretty much, keeping, if it ain't broke, it don't fix it type of mentality, where they were more hearkening back to traditional practices. And then we're going to beginning in the second part of the course, after the first exam, we're going to be focusing on these revolutions that have shaped the modern world. Revolutions in technology, revolutions in industry and in our economy, revolutions in our scientific and our science and how we look at the world, and political revolutions, the development of democracy, the development of representative government. And we can see this particularly when you look at the American and the French revolutions at the end of the 18th and early 19th century. Then we're going to conclude the course by looking at the history of the world in the 19th and 20th centuries, and especially the two conflicts. Actually, they're one big conflict. What has really shaped the whole history of the world up to this point you could really call it the Great War. World War I and World War II are basically components of a single conflict that really has its roots in the 19th century. So the last part of this class will focus on the lead up to World War I, because if you understand World War I, World War II is like that. World War II cannot be explained unless you understand World War I. And it can just be called the Great War. And basically everything that we see in the world today has been shaped and influenced by that Great War. So understanding that Great War, World War I and World War II, will give you an insight to understanding the history of the state of our world and the world we live in at the beginning of the 21st century. All right, got that done. All right, so we are going to get started next Tuesday, this coming Tuesday. We're going to be looking at the Reformation, and I'll see you all on Tuesday. Yes, question?
The two textbooks, we just need to get those as soon as possible.
I would get them as soon as possible. They can all be bought used at the bookstore, so they should be at a reduced price. They're still like $50, $60, but anyway, or more. I'm not sure exactly the price, but yeah, they're all available in the bookstore.